everybody, this is Ananda, and today I'm going to talk about the Enneagram Type 5, the observer, sometimes referred to as the investigator. The Enneagram Type 5 are also from the thinking and the planning triad. That is the 5s, the 6s, and the 7s, and this is the last one from that particular triad. The observer is, in Jungian terms, what we call the introvert, a person who is self-referencing, but they tend to observe how energy is affecting them. They are very aware of their own being. And depending on the subtype, they can be intellectual, they can be very quiet and aloof. They tend toward avarice, miserliness, which is their deadly sin. So the 5 really has to work on their generosity. That is how they overcome the avarice. But the avarice is not necessarily in terms of money or that kind of thing. It can be, but not necessarily. It's usually about energy. 5s don't want to feel engulfed. They feel very overwhelmed by the world out there. And depending on the subtype, that fear of being engulfed is acted out in 3 different ways. The 5s really are people who need a lot of alone time. They do and can tend to seem very detached and dissociate kind of from their emotions and think about their feelings versus really feel their feelings, which is why 5s can sometimes seem like they're not really in touch with their feelings, and they can seem super insensitive or aloof, where in fact they are very hypersensitive inside. They just don't show it. They are the kind of people who need to spend a lot of time alone. They need to recharge their batteries. And the fear here, and well, should I say the danger here, is that the 5s will over-isolate themselves to the point that they really won't want anything to do with the outside world and will feel very detached from people because they don't want to feel engulfed. And that fear of engulfment can lead them to feeling very separated and very alone. And they will prefer to be just isolated and alone than to make the effort of having to get out there and really be exposed to other people's energies in this great, big, overwhelming world. As far as the subtypes go, the self-preservation 5 is the 5 that really looks like a 5. The most 5-ish of all the 5s. They are particularly aloof and they can seem almost cold and distant. The word here is castle. They like to be very self-sufficient. All 5s do. So they like to kind of keep all their needs within their castle. In other words, I can have everything inside my home. I guess another word for castle would be home. All my needs met so that I don't have to be in any way dependent on anyone or anything outside of my home, myself. And because they just are afraid of that, of being hurt. They are afraid of feeling engulfed. So the self-preservation 5 tends toward, really spending a lot of time alone. A great meditation for a 5 is to climb out of that alone feeling and spending so much time alone and kind of going to a coffee shop, making conversation with other people so that they begin to realize that they don't really have to be afraid. Their abundance, their energy, their vitality is all in the shadow. That's what a 5 needs to actually work on to recognize that it is there. The social 5 is a person who is idealizes information. They kind of substitute interconnectedness, relating to other people with information. They tend toward idealizing experts in whatever they're interested in. So if they're interested, for example, in spirituality, they will idealize who they perceive to be an expert in that area. Information. They can be very intellectual. They want to hang out with people that are like them. And they kind of collect experts. Often with this type of 5, they'll surround themselves with people that interest them and have a couple of friends, but not very many friends. They are not, I would say, not social in that way, but they are more social than the self-preservation 5. Information takes this is what they substitute feeling interconnected with. So they are academic and intellectual in that they just really collect information. These are people who love to read, love to know. Knowledge is power. That's what a 5 believes. And they can also be miserly with their knowledge. In other words, they're careful to keep their knowledge to themselves. They don't necessarily want to even share their knowledge. It's this need in them to keep what they have to themselves. 5s work on their generosity, and slowly but surely they begin to recognize that the more they actually share, the more they begin to get. This fear of engulfment starts to fade away to the point that they can have a lot more balance. And that's where 5 has to work. The sexual 5 idealizes the perfect love. When I meet the perfect person, I'll be happy. This perfect love, I'll feel fulfilled. In most 5s, the fear really is of meaninglessness. They have a sense that perhaps life is meaningless. And they try and fulfill that emptiness with these idealizations. For a social 5, it's in information. And for a sexual 5, it's finding the ideal person, the ideal love, a kind of tantric union that will heighten their sense of worth and their sense of connectedness in this world. One person who they can really trust above all others and have this very sacred relationship with. So the sexual 5 is the most romantic and the least aloof of all the 5s. They can look like a 5, but once you start talking to them and you hit on that kind of romantic nerve, they've got a lot of that romantic kind of sensitive, they can even be pretty creative in that way with music and art. I found that the sexual 5s tend toward having the 4 wing. And this is how they are. So I have a lot of 5s in my life. My daughter is a type 5. Ramaji is a type 5. My best friend's a type 5. So I really know this type of person very well. And lots of students are 5. The reason that a lot of social 5s turn to kind of Buddhism is because it's the 5s are prone to sensing that detachment, that because they are so naturally detached. So they are they are attracted to Buddhism as a way of a spiritual journey that kind of keeps them in their mind. They can figure it out. They're kind of steps that they can think about. But often that is kind of a spiritual bypassing form of detachment. It's not the real detachment, because they still are really detaching from their feelings. And as long as you're detaching from your feelings, it's not the ideal form of detachment. To feel your feelings is what it really means when you start awakening, and not to block them by intellectualizing or thinking about your feelings. Thinking about your feelings and feeling your feelings are two different things. 5s have to begin to really feel what they feel and reach out and understand that their life force, their energy is actually as abundant as anybody else's. It's just in the shadow. Just like every type has got something, some kind of amazing quality that is hidden from them. And that is why we kind of fixated on being a certain way, because we don't feel we have this well, if you're a 5, we have this abundant energy, so we become fixated on isolating ourselves, which is what a 5 tends to do. They can seem very shy and be very quiet, not speak much. This is just the way a 5 can be, depending on the subtype. The self-preservation is the most quiet of all of them and the most aloof. Anyway, if you're a 5, you're fantastic. Again, I have tons of 5s in my life. I really love them. The 5 does tend to move. A healthy 5 moves towards being an 8. Maybe that's why 5s and I get along so well. This movement for them is really about feeling their energy when they become healthy, becoming more, feeling their power. Feeling that they can say what they actually feel and feel what they're saying. And aggression even can be something very healthy for a 5, feeling that they're allowed to feel even their anger, not necessarily act it out, but feel it. And so remembering that what a 5 does is avoid fear. What a 6 does is overdoes fear. And what a 7 does is pretend the fear doesn't exist. Because we're now going to be moving, the next one I do is into the feeling triad, which is the 4s, the 3s, and the 2s. That is all about feeling feelings. So we move, this is the last one on the thinking and planning triad. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.